race of blacks 10, 20 or 40 miles in the Black Mountains, starting at Lambeda, finishing there as well. Known as a brutal course with considerable elevation, it was going to be a challenging run. We started with a sharp climb going up over 200 metres. The temperature never got above 10 degrees, and as we climbed it got colder and colder. There were some small road sections, but the vast majority of the race was in the countryside and up in the mountains. The Black Mountains are a stunning place to run, even though the terrain was challenging, and looking ahead, the elevation looked intimidating. The second climb of the day was also the steepest. It would take us from about 199 metres above sea level to nearly 800 metres above sea level. As we climbed, the temperature dropped and we entered into mist. Visibility started to drop and the climbing only seemed to get steeper. Conditions underfoot were a challenge all the way through, but this was particularly true in the higher altitudes where the water was colder and even icy, and at places there was no way you could avoid getting your feet wet. So at a certain point my feet started to go quite numb. Now I have heard it said that there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad kit, and I'm not 100% sure I made the right kit choices. It was fine, but I think in hindsight some better gloves, better socks, and wearing leggings rather than shorts, and maybe having a base layer that I was wearing rather than it staying in my pack the whole time might have helped in particularly these higher altitude sections. Now, to be honest, at this point, about 7 miles in and about 2 hours deep, I was starting to question my life choices. My feet were freezing, the ground was difficult to even walk on, let alone run on, and visibility was really poor. So the enjoyment factor really wasn't there at this point. Now, fortunately, it got a lot better as time goes on, and looking back over the footage, it looks incredible, but this continuous climbing over steep slopes was really, really punishing. This cairn represented the highest point of the course at nearly 800 metres above sea level. I was delighted to finally get to the top. We had to be careful on the way down. It was steep and it was very, very slippy. More than one person went over. I almost went a couple of times, but was fortunate to be able to rely on my poles. Long downhill was a relief and lifted my spirits and my confidence as we headed towards the halfway mark. We came into checkpoint 1 at just over 10 miles, really well stocked, great volunteers, and a real boost to be able to fill the bottles and have some food and get ready for the second section. So it was a steep climb out of the aid station, and it was interesting how much fatigue was still in my legs from those previous uphills, having relatively bombed down the downhill to the aid station, but as soon as I started climbing I could really feel the soreness in my legs. So 12 and a quarter miles in. There's a big climb out of the aid station, but now there's for quite some time. There's a few little boggy bits and generally much better running. Between miles 12 and 16 there was relatively flat running, allowing for the boggy conditions, which enabled me to run between 10 and 11 minute miles, which for me for these sort of conditions was pretty good. At this point, about 3.5 hours in, I was moving a bit better, having experienced some fatigue previously. .14:38. Yeah. I bet this is lovely in the summer. At various points in the final quarter of the course or so, we started to have the 40-mile runners come past us because they complete the course in the same direction we do, starting a little bit earlier, and then they come back in the reverse direction. Credit to them, it was difficult conditions. I would not have fancied doing the 40. Well done to anyone who even attempted that, let alone finished. Okay, just under 16. According to Climb Pro, there's now 2 mile climb. Let's see. Okay, 16.67. Cleared the last checkpoint. On we go with a relentless climb. There, I think. Maybe it's downhill from there. We'll see. Okay, probably better on this. Alright, 17:72. I think that's a trick point up there, so that must be as high as we go, hopefully. As tough as the race had been, I was sad that I was getting towards the end. It is a luxury to be out in these hills and be out in this sort of landscape and out in nature. And the thought of this being over and leaving this behind did leave me with some regret. Although physically, I'm not sure I could have done much more than I managed. In terms of races I've done, the Beast of the Blacks is one of the most beautiful, but also one of the most challenging. It was right up there with UTS Snowdonia. I will inevitably come back someday, quite probably to do the 40-miler, of course. Coming at the end of the race, just over the bridge, there's a really nasty, sharp uphill, which I hadn't realised was there, that really was a bit of a kicker. Thank you. Straight on, okay. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. So the statistics, 20.41 miles travelled in just over 5 hours, at 5 hours 11 minutes. The total ascent was, according to my watch, 1,431 metres with a descent of 1,424. Beast of the Blacks deserves its reputation, so if you're going to come, make sure you bring your hill legs, make sure you bring plenty of fuel, nutrition and hydration, and make sure you wrap up warm because the weather as it is on the ground might not be what it is on the peak.